Hey, beautiful friends. This is Sarah Blumenfeld, host of Networking Done Different. Today, I'm joined by Jerry Clark. He is an author, a coach, a counselor, and a speaker. And he's going to talk to us about how he helps people and also his latest book. Hi, Jerry.
Hello, Sarah. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. He's also one of my Toastmaster buddies.
Yes, ma'am. What a good time we have.
Love Toastmasters. So first of all, let's start off with how did you get into this current career?
Sarah, I have lived a lot of years, and I think all my years have led up to this point in my life. I served some time in the military, went to Angelo State University, graduated in 71, and went to work for GTE Telecommunications. And during that time, I had just married, and my marriage failed after 12 years, which was a huge impact in my life. We had two sons, and it impacted them in a very negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, Connie and I married, and our relationship went down. And so we went to counseling, and that's something that really helped me. And I had no clue. I was very resistant to counseling. And the interesting thing was, Connie and I were in a couples group, and the women in that group did not like me. They called me Mr. Perfect, Mr. Right, Mr. Know-it-all. And I was not happy. And needless to say, I didn't like them very much either. But these women, that's right. These women absolutely changed my life because they opened up the blind spots that I had of the way I was treating people and had no clue. When I was controlling, others felt controlled, and when I was right, they had to be wrong. If I was Mr. Perfect, I blamed them for whatever was going on.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing to even think about, but that was my journey. And as I learned those things about myself, I decided, well, I really heard this small, still voice saying, Jerry, take care of my people, and I'll take care of you. And wow, I just began to think of all of the men that I knew that were in my same circumstance. They were having trouble in their relationships, they were having trouble at their job, and so I really listened to that. And I went back to school, and I got a degree in marriage and family therapy, and graduated in 96. And in 99, I retired from GTE after 30 years, the telecommunication industry, and began to do this full time. And after I had been working since 99, I just kept repeating the same things over and over to people that I began to hear this still voice again say, Jerry, get this to the masses. And it was like, oh my goodness.
What does that mean, right?
Oh no, not again. Because the last time I heard that voice, it took a lot of years of college and preparation to be able to be in private practice.
Right.
But when I heard the voice the second time, I decided that I needed to do some speaking and write a book, because the more people that I could give this message to, the more I felt like I could cause openness and opportunities for relationship, as opposed to relationships that were struggling. And so as I looked at the information I had, I was going to do a seminar on couples and on parenting. And I was working with my niece, Kelly Majors, who's a graphic artist, and she was going to do the art for me. And she said, my goodness, Jerry, you've got a book. And so together we put the book together, and that's kind of where I am today. I love working with people. I love seeing change. I love stopping the tears and the pain and creating opportunities for families, couples, and individuals. That was a long answer, I think.
It was a great answer. So, do you have your book to show us?
I do.
Yay.
Blind spots in relationships.
Look, I got one too.
Yes, you do. What I don't know about myself. And this book absolutely is part of what awakened me to know that there are things that I do and say that are offensive to others. And when I don't know it, I continue to push people away. And it's even embarrassing to think about it today, but when I was doing it, I didn't know any difference.
Sure, sure. Okay, so talk a little more about this concept of what I don't know about myself.
There are so many things that I can say and do that offend other people. I can be too controlling. I can be a know-it-all. I can filibuster. I can tell hero stories to trump other people's, talks and ideas. And the interesting thing is, I don't do it 100% of the time. I may do it 10% or 20% or even more. But the more I present those things that are offensive to others, the more the relationship begins to dissipate. And before you know it, it can be fractured to the point of where there's not a relationship. I think all of us can think of a person that we talk to, and every time we say something, they have a story to tell and are more interested in telling their story than listening to mine. And that's just a short example of how this blind spot works.
Yeah. And this is applicable in business just as much as in personal relationships, right?
Yes, ma'am, it is. The way we talk in business, the way we present in business, either fosters our advance or retards it. And I work a lot with small companies and corporations in conflict resolution and training, because these concepts that I present here are not taught anywhere. We learn a lot about engineering, science, English, history, accounting, but nowhere that I know do we work on or learn formally anything about relationships. And they're just as important in the business world as they are in the family world or relationship world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And often if you are doing things that you don't realize are, as you call it, offensive to someone else, especially in your business, they'll just go elsewhere. They won't tell you, hey,
Exactly.
this thing you're doing, it's really, not making me want to do business with you. No, they'll just go elsewhere. Not good
Exactly.
for your business.
And they do it silently. And
Yeah.
so the business erodes without information. One of the questions I like to ask when I'm working with business is, what do you want the customer to say about you? What do you want it to say? What do you want them to say about your employees and about your service? And I think those are great questions to answer, because once you know the answer, then you can accumulate, or you can set up some small behaviors or actions to ensure those things happen. But unless we're strategic and intentional about the way we go about that, we lose sight of it and lose our customers.
Right. And you certainly don't want your customers going out and saying, you know what, you really don't want to do business with him. He always talks about himself. Right. I mean, that's like the worst marketing ever.
That is. And we don't hear it. And
Yeah.
that makes it even worse.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I like what you said about small changes in behavior. Could you talk more about that?
Yes, I think that's one of the secrets that has really propelled my life. The when I want a big goal, or I want to accomplish something,
Mhm.
and I start out to work on that goal, it has to do with how I go about it as to whether I attain it or not. It's not it's about the way I put it together. So if I want to make more money, I need to look at small behaviors I can make every day, or behaviors or actions I can take every day that would ensure that I am reaching my goal. It's not the goal, it's the activities that I take to to attain the goal.
Mhm.
And what I have found is, when I use a chart and I get up every morning and I say, I want to do these things today, and then I review it at night. Did I make it or did I not? And it's not about grading myself or beating myself up. It's about looking at how I'm performing. And at the end of the week, I tally everything up and I decide whether I want to continue to do the same activities and behaviors, or if I want to modify them, or if there's one that I haven't been doing very well on, what do I need to do to pick up that piece? So it's the activities to me that lead to success. Small activities. They don't have to be giant steps. Read 10 pages a night. Listen to an informative podcast like yours.
Like ours, exactly. Well, it's so
But
important that they be small steps, right? Because if
yes,
you look at some big ginormous goal, it's like, oh, I just can't do it. But if it's like, just do this tiny thing, it's like, I can do that.
exactly. Exactly. I do that with exercise, with eating, with anything that I want to change. And
Mhm.
it has been phenomenal to see the results
Yeah,
because you see the results a little bit at a time along the way. It's not something that you measure at the end of the year and determine whether I made it or not.
right.
You were talking about the business world too, and that's another thing that I think is extremely important is to assess what our employees are doing on a regular basis so
Mhm.
that so that you know there's not any surprises at the end of the year when appraisals come out that everyone is really in tune. And I think when we measure those things and are active with our employees, we keep them focused on exactly what's important to us.
As well, to check in with your employees on a regular basis to see if there are things that are going on that you're not aware of, right?
Exactly. That is so important. And it brings up another blind spot. If I'm not easy to talk to, if
Mhm.
I'm, painful to talk to, or I don't want to hear bad news,
Yeah.
it'll, it won't get to me. And it will, when I find out, it might be too late. But it's just so important to be a safe listener, to be able to have people tell you anything, especially your employees, or it doesn't matter. The more safe you are to listen, the more information you're going to get. The more information you have, the better decisions and actions you can take.
Describe what you mean by a safe listener. I love that term.
Oh, I, just a quick story. I was talking to a young lady who was a single mom. It's been many years ago. And she was telling me that she had a 15-year-old daughter. And she said, Jerry, I know who's sneaks out at night. I know who's smoking dope. I know who's having sex. I know who's skipping school. I know who's cheating at school. She said, I know all this information and I don't know what to do with it. And it really hit me to
Mhm.
listen to what she was saying because I just said, man, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is, keep it up because you need to hear what she has going on in her life, and you can give her the best information, the best instructions to handle that kind of stuff. Looking back, long before I did this work, and when my boys were young, I was not that good a listener. And I think I used the example as if my son would have said that his friend was smoking cigarettes, I would have said, I better not catch you smoking cigarettes. Better
Mm,
not even catch you with matches or a lighter. And I mean, that's just the way I was and didn't know it. But who
yeah.
would want to tell me things when they felt a response like that? And the same is true in business. We just need to be open to hear all the things that are going on, the good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah, those are great examples. Thanks. You have one chapter that I wanted to kind of dive into a little more in your book called Rust in Relationships. Tell me about that.
That's a very interesting concept. As I watched uh, people and their activities and their interactions, what I noticed were things that were said or done that that didn't get disclosed, or if they did, they only got disclosed once or twice, and then because no action was taken, it was just sort of put on the shelf. Like you never empty the trash, and nothing happens, and then it's brought up again. Why don't you ever empty the trash? And nothing happens. So The idea is, I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to cause any more trouble. And so we go silent about that. And every time we see the trash full, it's like, well, still don't empty the trash. I'll have to do it myself. And these little resentments, and they're tiny at times,
Right.
they build up, and we just get a collection of these things. And once, we get into an argument or get upset about something, we will recall every one of those little resentments. And it's so painful. But I liken resentments to rust. And rust on a fine piece of metal will destroy that metal over time. And that's it. That's the way I see relationships. The resentments over time destroy it. You do something that upsets me, I, I just step back a little bit. I upset you, you step back. And before you know it, we have created a chasm between us. And it has to do so much with what we're not saying as opposed to what we are saying. But I love the concept, rust in relationships, because if we're not aware of it, if we don't maintain our relationships and clear the air, then we're destroying or allowing our relationships to degrade. I use two questions for relationships and maintaining relationships. The first is, what do you need from me that you're not getting? That doesn't mean that you automatically get it. It just means that let me point out something that is missing for me. It could be that you used to give me a kiss when I came home, or you used to, you know, give me a card, or maybe even give me flowers, and I don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
And that question at that point is not up for debate. It's a question, or not a question, but a statement that will, I say you can't talk about it for at least a day or two, because if I say you never give me flowers, and you say, well, the last time I gave you flowers, you just put them in the basement, uh, and and so it's about not arguing about that, but just letting the other person know what's going on with you and what's missing.
Right.
The other question is, what are we not talking about that we need to be talking about? And I think that awakens the idea of, we have so many things on our mind.
Yeah.
You've heard the story I'm telling myself. And so many times I'm telling myself a story, but I don't let you know what it is. And as a result, act out of that story as though it's true. That you may be mad at me, or you may be upset that I didn't do this yesterday, when you just might not be feeling well. Uh, and so I'm acting in a way that you don't understand, because you're not asking me and I'm not telling you. But when we tell each other the stories that we're telling ourselves, even in the workplace, we begin to enrich the relationships.
Wow. So communication, effective communication is just so key.
We live in a very intellectual society, and we have
Sometimes I wonder about that, Jerry.
well, maybe. I think we're intellectual people, and yet sometimes the way we show up is not very intellectual. The way we
Right.
communicate is not very intellectual. Which reminds me, Sarah, of gently curious questions, and that's another thing that I think is very important in the book. It has to do with understanding and appreciating what someone is really talking about, as opposed to my assumptions. So if someone says, I'm upset, uh, I say that any adjective that we use to talk about ourselves or each other is on a continuum. Upset can be mildly upset or chronically upset. And when they tell me they're upset, they're somewhere on that continuum. And then when I hear they're upset, I assess where they are on that continuum. I may think they're way down here when they're really over here. And unless I ask gently curious questions, help me understand that. How long have you been feeling that way? What else can you tell me about it? Just anything gentle and curious to join with that person, so that I can understand and appreciate where they really are.
And to do that without, in just listening mode, and not well, no, that's not right, or right, arguing back with them.
Yeah. See, I think generally when we hear things such as that, uh, we it's easy to want to fix. I like
Mhm.
the example of your child comes to you and says, "I'm not very smart," and the first thing we say is,
Yes, you are.
"Of course, yes, you are." And I use this idea. I always have to use my hands, but a person comes to you and they're anxious or they're uh, confused or they're frustrated. And I say that anxious people cannot hear facts. We start giving anxious people facts. You don't need to be worried about that. Uh, this is going to happen. That's going to happen. And
Mhm.
and people who are anxious don't hear facts. In fact, they feel rebuffed. And like the child you say that comes to you and says, I'm not very smart. And we begin with the gently curious questions. What else can you tell me about that? How long have you been feeling that way? What do you think I think about that? And 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 what we do is, in a sense, we join with them in a way that now they feel connected to us. And I say, wait at least an hour or 2 hours after you've had that joining conversation, and then go back and say, Sarah, remember when you said you weren't very smart? Would it be okay if I disagree with that? And they can really hear it at that time because they know that we care. And that's what blocks so much communication. When we try to fix, it comes across as we don't care and something's bad wrong with them, and we know it, but we're not helping them by fixing them. You may know that we as guys like to fix, and
I've heard that. I've heard that. I loved the question, how do you think I feel about that? Because, wow, that could open up so much.
yes,
You had no idea that they had made this story up in their head that, first of all, the story that I am or am not this. And then second of all, this is how the person feels about that. And it's all just made up. But for you to be able to know that, then you can maybe help them see that that is not actually
yes.
the case.
When you're asking those questions, you might hear something about yourself like, well, you don't like me and you don't think I'm smart. And, at that point in time, I never challenge or accept that challenge.
Right.
I just say, wow, help me understand that. What am I doing that makes you come across that way?
Mm-hmm.
And, and because if I challenge them, now I'm out of the gently curious mode and I'm wanting to give them facts.
Right.
But later on, I can go back and correct that, but not in the moment as I'm helping them talk themselves off the ledge. Their
Right.
mind is just ricocheting back and forth. The more they are able to organize their thoughts and talk about them, then the more they decompress themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just letting it out by saying it, right? It's been all bottled up and creating that pressure inside them. And just by speaking it, it relieves some of that pressure.
No doubt about it. Very well said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. What else would you like to share from the book? It was so good. It's just, I highly recommend people get it because it's so rich in really practical things that you can do pretty simply to improve your relationships.
You know, um, we can talk about any number of those. Global thinking is a chapter that comes to mind. And let me just look over here for a second. Global thinking has to do with exactly what we're talking about, where our mind just pings back and forth. And and when we're anxious, we just take the same subjects over and over again, and and we wrestle with them, but we don't ever master them. If I'm worried about my car, if I'm worried about my finances, if I'm worried about the roof on my house, my children, an illness I have, or my, mother-in-law, or anything, my work, a project I have due, my mind focuses on one. And then before I do anything, if I'm thinking about, finances, I'm wrestling with that monster, and then I go to, well, I still got to do something with my car, and I still need to do something with the roof. And what about this project? And I just ping back and forth, and my mind stays cluttered. And that's when I lay down on my pillow at night, and I can't sleep because I'm just ricocheting back and forth.
All right.
I came up with this little idea of 4 questions that I take every one of these things that are my worries or stressors, and I run them through 4 questions. Four. What do I know? What do I know about this? And I write as much as I can think of that I know. If it's about my job, I just begin to list the things that run through my mind. Uh, I know that I don't feel like I'm paid enough. I know that there's a lot of gossip. I know that I don't. I know that there's not going to be advancement here, but it's the more I can write, the more clear things become. Then I write, what do I not know? The second question, what do I not know about this job? I don't know if I can find a better one. I don't know if I did, it would pay as well, or if I'd have the same problems. But just taking that and not just doing it in a few minutes, but taking it through days of going back and looking at what do I know and what do I not know. The third question is, what can I do about this? And I can stay here and endure it. I can keep grumping about it, or I can let go and stop being negative. I can talk to my boss about this. And then the last question is, what can I not do about this? And the interesting thing about, there's a lot of things I can't do. I can't change my salary. I can't change the people. I can't change the boss. But the idea to me, and this is in the first part of the book, when my anxiety goes up, my intellect goes down. And it's a blind spot I think that we all have. The more anxious I become, the less intellectual. Intellect and spirituality run on the same plane, inversely proportioned to emotions. And so as my emotions go up, my intellect and spirituality go down. That when I run this equation, what do I know? What do I not know? What can I do? What can I not do? When I run through that, I began to build facts. And the more facts I have, the more I feel like I'm intellectual, and my emotions decline. And when my emotions and intellect and spirituality are all running together, I can make the best decisions of any. But when I'm overly intellectual or overly anxious, my decisions are really skewed.
Wow, those are great questions. I love those. So you said you're, I said you're a speaker. What do you speak about? I mean, I assume this relationship dynamics in general. What kind of groups do you like to speak to?
I've spoken at my church. I speak to churches. I speak to service clubs. I was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the end of last year, speaking at a health, wealth, and self conference. I speak anywhere I can because I still hear the soft, gentle words, get this word to the masses. And so I speak at schools, just, various places where I can make a difference. So I'm open if anyone would like me to come and speak, whether it's on a Zoom call or in person. I'm more than available.
Perfect. So how do people get your book? How do they get in touch with you?
My website is jerrydclark.com, jerrydclark.com, and it has everything that you would need on that website. My books are available at Amazon and in various bookstores, Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, all the major bookstores. And really the easiest way to connect with me is through the website, jerrydclark.com. There's a place to leave your information, to ask questions, or contact me for any information you'd like from me.
And when you do your counseling coaching sessions, is that always in person in the Clear Lake area, or do you also do those by Zoom or some similar thing?
Some are by Zoom. The
Okay.
thing that I feel is most effective is in person. I get a sense of what's going on much better one-on-one or one with family or group than I do on Zoom. When I'm working with teams in the business world, I've done it on Zoom, and I work with teams uh, in the business world when we're one-to-one, and there are so many cues that I feel like I miss when I'm on Zoom that I can pick up in person. So I
Yeah.
really enjoy the person-to-person conversation.
Right. Well, that makes sense. As we wrap up, Jerry, is there anything else you'd like to share?
Sarah, I just appreciate your invitation to be here.
Of
And
course.
I really am excited about being able to assist people in various ways. And that's really my mission. That's my call. I'm a servant, and I want to serve. And to prevent tears or to dry up tears or to see um, people in their business world prosper as opposed to fail, to see
Mhm.
marriages prosper as opposed to dissolve, to see kids laugh and play as opposed to, you know, be in tears about what's going on with their mom and dad. That's what I'm all about. I want to build a better world, starting right here in this area.
One relationship at a time, right?
Yes, ma'am. One one step, one relationship.
Yeah, and 4 questions.
Four.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much. This has been very wonderful information I'm sure is going to benefit our listeners.
Well, thank you, Sarah. It's been great. Look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, friends, for listening today. I always appreciate you being here. If you would like to be interviewed, please email me at networkingdonedifferent@gmail.com. Bye for now.
Good day.